Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters on France 24. I'm Nadia Massi. Here's what's coming up in the show this week. The fallout from Benjamin Netanyahu's judicial reform. As Israeli protesters keep up the pressure on the streets, some are considering leaving the country altogether. 3 months after the Turkey-Syria quake, cancer patients struggle to get proper care. We look at the situation in one oncology ward in Idlib province. And a popular TV show in Egypt sparks debate about the country's guardianship law and its impact on widowed mothers. We discuss the law and the series with France 24's Thamin Al-Khitan. But first, a high-profile Palestinian prisoner has died in an Israeli jail this week after a nearly 3-month hunger strike. Haider Adnan, a prominent figure within Islamic Jihad, had spent years in and out of prison, often without charge, under the controversial Israeli practice of administrative detention. In 2011, he refused food for 66 days while incarcerated, inspiring other Palestinian prisoners to do the same. Adnan is believed to be the first Palestinian to die as a direct result of a hunger strike. Well, the death of Adnan comes as Israel is marking 75 years since its establishment in 1948. And this year, the country is being rocked by arguably the largest protests in its history, the latest of which took place last Saturday with tens of thousands of people out on the streets. On the table is major judicial reform that Benjamin Netanyahu's critics say will concentrate power with the Prime Minister and undermine Israel's system of checks and balances. In fact, such is the scale of the opposition to the government's plans that a growing number of Israelis are considering leaving the country altogether.
It's a document that this Tel Aviv resident treasures.
This is my German passport that I have because of my parents coming from Germany.
His grandparents fled Nazi Germany to settle in Israel. Now Tom Ziv is trying to make the opposite journey. He's asked for German passports for his 2 daughters. He no longer sees a future for his family in Israel since the government presented its plan for judicial reform.
The rules that the government wants to pass is putting us towards a state where a dictatorship is possible.
Like Tom Ziv, tens of thousands of Israelis have been demonstrating for weeks against this bill, which aims to reduce the power of the Supreme Court and strengthen that of Parliament. A reform that is pushing more and more Israelis to consider leaving the country. That's according to the organization Ocean Relocation. Founded before the State of Israel even existed, the company has been in the business of helping Jews move to the Promised Land for 80 years. But today, the phone is ringing constantly with a different request.
Extremely highly demand of relocation from Israel. It's related to the judicial reform. I don't think we had this experience in the past that most of the demand is for immigration from Israel and not to Israel.
More than 100 requests to relocate are received every day. That's 4 times as many applications as were requested last year. According to the organization, Europe tops the list of preferred destinations. It represents 70% of all planned departures from Israel.
Now, it's been nearly 3 months since a devastating earthquake struck southern Turkey and northern Syria, killing over 50,000 people. And the ripple effects of the quake are still being felt, including by cancer patients in Syria. Before the disaster, Syrians in the province of Idlib could cross the border into Turkey in search of better treatment. Now, with that border closed, it's no longer possible. Catherine Viette has the details.
Cancer patients fill the oncology ward at the Syrian American Medical Center in Idlib. Every day, hundreds of patients come for treatment of various types of cancer, but due to the country's long civil war, many hospitals in northwestern Syria lack equipment and medication to help the sick.
We sometimes need scans to assess how the treatment is going and if patients are responding or not. There are machines that are not available to us here, and patients need to go and get that scan in Turkey and come back.
In the past, many patients would cross the border to Turkey for treatment that's not available in Syria. But after the devastating earthquake in February, that's no longer an option.
After that last earthquake, we have thousands of patients who are in very bad shape financially and who used to go to Turkey for treatment. But recently, the borders have closed, so no one is able to go to Turkey for treatment.
Thousands of cancer patients are now stuck in Syria without access to life-saving treatment, like Yasmin al-Mohammed's 1-year-old son, who suffers from a rare form of the disease.
I used to get my son treated in Turkey, but we were here when the earthquake hit. Afterwards, when we tried to go back, they said the borders were closed. The youngest is really sick. His condition has worsened, and every doctor I go to says there is no treatment for him here.
Many turn to the black market for medicine, but with some medications costing thousands per dose, it's unaffordable for all but a lucky few, in a region where much of the population relies on aid. Without the necessary treatment, the doctors on the ward say their patients' prognoses are grim, with their chances of survival nearly non-existent.
Now, a popular TV show in Egypt has shone a light on the country's guardianship law, which denies women legal guardianship of their children and inheritance in the event of their husband's death. Campaigners and a number of MPs are trying to change the law. And joining me to discuss is France 24's Thameen Al-Khitan. Thameen, thanks for coming onto the programme. First of all, just tell us about the law itself. What does it lay out in the event that a child's father dies?
It's a text that dates back to 1952, and it says that the financial guardianship over minors under 21 goes to their paternal grandfather if the father dies. And if the grandfather dies, then the mother can have the guardianship unless the children's paternal uncle claims it. So that means that many Egyptian women today do not actually have the right to manage the assets of their own children. Egyptian laws are also similar in different domains. For example, a widowed mother does not have the right to register her children at school without the authorization of the guardian. Same thing when it comes to obtaining an ID card or a passport for the children. Almost everything has to be done under the supervision and in the presence of the legal guardian.
And this issue is particularly in the spotlight right now because of that TV show I mentioned. It's called Under Guardianship. Just tell us a bit about the show.
Well, it tells the story of Hanan, a mother of two, played by Muna Zaki. Her husband is a fisherman. He dies, and here starts her struggle to raise her children under all these circumstances. She learns how to sail a boat to be able to earn her living and support her kids. And she goes through a legal conflict against her brother-in-law over the guardianship of the kids. Let's see.
طيب اسم المتوفي ايه؟
عادل عطية السيد.
والقصر ياسين وفرح.
مظبوط.
طيب احنا كده بقى محتاجين الأستاذ عطية السيد اللي هو الجد.
ليه؟ أنا أمه.
أنا عارف إن حضرتك أمه، بس احنا محتاجين اللي معاه الوصاية على مال القصر اللي هو الجد.
يعني إيه الوصاية؟
يعني هو الوحيد المسؤول عن أي فلوس تخص الولاد.
وأنا أمهم ما أقدرش؟ إزاي؟ ده أنا أدرى واحدة هم محتاجين إيه.
And I mean, since this series aired during the month of Ramadan, many have been saying now's the time to get this law amended.
Of course, the series is based on real stories, and after it was aired, many Egyptians who have lost their fathers when they were minors have spoken on social media about their suffering, and it seems their voices have reached the parliament. Senator Riham Afifi, for example, said that this text has a big legal loophole. It needs to be closed, and she filed an official request for the text to be amended. Similar requests were also made by two Egyptian deputies. Now, of course, many human rights activists have always been vocal on this issue. We have spoken to Aya Munir. She's an Egyptian feminist, and she has founded the Superwoman Initiative. With her team, they have been following last season's TV shows to see how they dealt with women rights. Let's take a listen.
It's a wonderful series with a very intricate plot. It has encouraged many people who were originally indifferent towards this issue to sympathize with the main character, Hanan, and to start asking questions like, why do we make women's lives hard? And why do we treat them as if they were inferior beings who are incapable of being financially responsible for their children, in the same way as they bear other responsibilities? Discrimination between men and women in family issues is purely misogynistic. It stems from the fact that legislators were all men who were living in a male-dominated society. Women were totally marginalized, but society has changed. Today, almost a third of Egypt's families financially depend on women. It's so strange that women are treated as objects by civil laws. And at the same time, in the penal code, they're considered full citizens and are subject to the same punishments.
That was Aya Munir Thamin. And TV and cinema can have a real influence, can't it? This isn't the first time that a TV show in Egypt has led to calls to change a law.
There are many examples. Indeed, a couple of years ago, we have seen this series called Newton's Cradle. It sparked a debate in Egypt about rape crimes committed by husbands against their wives. Now, it has long been a taboo issue, and many have been calling since then for criminalizing this kind of rape. Such productions are not recent in Egypt. We have seen also this film, I Need a Solution, a 1975 film starring late Fatin Hamama, which tackles the suffering of women who did not have the right to divorce if their husbands did not want to. Of course, this right was finally obtained by Egyptian women 25 years later.
Wow. Thanks very much indeed for coming in to tell us about the law and about the show as well. Thamin El-Khitan. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to you as well for watching France 24. That's it for Middle East Matters this week, but do stay with us. There's much more news and analysis still to come here on France 24.
From North America to the southern tip of Patagonia, join us for a look at the latest political, economic, cultural and social news from the Americas.
Inside the Americas. Presented by Jeannie Godula on France 24 and France24.com.